Hello there, welcome back. This is Manifest with Jenny and Nutritious Lives. And of course, I've got my beautiful friend here, colleague and friend, Nick.
Hi guys.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I've had a good week. How was your week been?
It's been up and down,
Okay.
you know. I'll always be honest. It's been
Yes,
up and down,
yeah.
and hence, you know, this is a bit of counselling for me, isn't it?
Well, yes, it could be. It could well be. Yes, yeah. To change energies a little bit.
So what are we going to talk about today? I'm really excited before we go into it.
Yeah.
It's like a double whammy because we are doing a double whammy today, aren't we? We're going to do a TikTok live after this.
We are.
This is our main video, and then we're going to do a bit of, I suppose it's going to be more on the jokey, not as serious.
I think obviously the topic today is what we're talking about is relationships and what constitutes a healthy relationship.
Or a relationship, a romantic relationship in general.
Yeah.
Because we are going to point out through the video that it's from the individual state, meaning that, you know, what is healthy to me, and we'll use us as an example, what's healthy to me isn't necessarily healthy to you, right, Nick? Yeah,
that's a good point, because we were discussing this earlier, weren't we, about attraction. You could say, and a lot of people may realise this, that attraction isn't a choice. It's automatic. And what we mean by this is we talk about the law of attraction, but that's a secondary law. The primary law is the law of vibration, which is what you're talking about.
Can I also say law of assumption?
And law of assumption,
because my standpoint is predominantly coming from that angle.
Yeah,
Goddard and law
most definitely about belief. And again, we've all got beliefs about ourselves, how we feel about ourselves in life, you know, what we're good at, what we're not good at, our esteem, is it high or low, which can vary, you know, depending on who you're mixing with. But also what Jen's saying is, and we discussed this earlier, is about your past. Unfortunately, our past does pollute the present.
But as we were mentioning quickly, we were talking about we have to get this over and articulate like this as best as we can. That we're not aware of this a lot of the time, are we, Nick?
No.
We consciously feel like we're making conscious choices as individuals.
Yes.
But then it's the subconscious that's looping these unconscious thoughts and patterns from the past.
And that's a valid point that Jen's making, because there was somebody, I'm sure you guys have heard of, Sigmund Freud, many moons ago. You know, he was the grandfather of psychology, or so they say. And he was one of the first people to come out with a definition called repetition compulsion, which means that unfortunately or fortunately, the bad traits our mothers or fathers have, you know, there's good and bad traits. I'm sure we'd all agree about that, and within us as well. We can bring that into a current relationship, man or woman, to try and fix a problem or right a wrong from 30 years ago, which is not possible, really.
And it's our dynamics of how we were as a family unit.
Yes,
and what we can maybe perceive as, oh, you know, that wasn't right when my parents did this, or when my mum or dad did this. But we're unconsciously repeating that same behaviour.
Yeah, that's the point. And you know, we may well know at the back of our mind that was a dysfunctional family. So we are trying to fix and right that wrong from years ago. You know, everybody's not a therapist, but they're almost acting like a therapist to try and right that wrong, you know. And one thing I do want to add, you know, I've got a brother, and we've all got relatives in families, and I'm sure Jen may agree, but me and my brother could be in a room in Liverpool together 30 years ago experiencing something, but both of us would talk about a separate experience, although we both thought we experienced the same experience.
Oh my word, it's crazy. This has happened so many times with my brother, and I've gone, oh my God, how can my brother look at it so differently to me? But that is a sign of the fact that, you know, what was, and I'll be totally honest, I came from a standpoint of, I felt rejection as a child. So I came from that standpoint. And then my brother may have felt, you know, fear or or hurt, or the opposite, absolutely adored and worshipped and loved. And that's reflected again in the difference with the story that we're telling ourselves.
Oh, most definitely. And obviously interpersonal dynamics as well are affected through family backgrounds, and that's what we're talking about, or leading into relationships. Because if you think about it, your or our role models were the parents or primary caregivers. I had grandparents bring me up as well. And some of our viewers, listeners, may well have had other caregivers bringing them up. And if you think about it, at a young age, we all know, you know, up to the age of 7, your pure unconscious mind, you've got no real reference points. I had somebody telling me that was an idiot as a child, so I grew up in a real nervous, dysfunctional family, which then carried on, I'll put my hand up, into adult relationships.
And then you have that, you know, you have disagreements then as an adult, and then we're not realizing this unconscious you're an idiot is coming into play to something that's probably got nothing to do with the situation itself, and yet you know we use the words to try to resolve it or anger the situation further from those conversations that are going on from within. And then it's a good point to then bring on, like we were discussing. So say for example now, Nick, if you've experienced abuse, sorry, we've got to do this because it looks like we're very intertwined today, me and Andy. Well, but this keeps going on the skew.
I think there's some gravity going on.
You've got to tether me back, haven't you?
This is it.
So, you know, I'll bring into example myself, and another key point, without me waffling on, making reference to this, is I'm changing my states, Nick. So what's acceptable to me yesterday is no longer acceptable. And to bring into reference to what I'm saying, the person that I was and the relationship choices I made 5 years ago, for example, I don't recognise that girl.
No,
I don't recognise her.
And this is quite important what Jen's talking about, because you may not notice it. It may be an incremental change, a subtle change. You know, you can even see by photographs. I mean, even eye colour, I'm not sure if you're aware, but personality traits, but not only that, but states of mind can change eye colour, can change people's physiology. And that can leak out into relationships. And I think what we're just trying to give you the information. Some of you guys may go over this anyway, but to help you all to understand that it's coming from self. You know, we have to get our own self relationship developed before we can jump into a relationship. Because if you think about it, it's a little bit like swimming. And if you guys can swim, you know, I could swim. I'm not a swimmer. My cousin is a swimmer. You know, I'm not. But we never jumped into the deep end before we could swim.
No.
You know, you've got to learn to swim. So you've got to understand yourself. And we talk about this a lot. Know thyself.
And the thing is, a lot of the time people, they don't realise that when they're making these choices, they do question, you know, obviously coming from a female perspective and you coming from a male perspective, you know, we go into these discussions and try to rationale, you know, on that very surface level, the very egoic level of why do I keep doing this, Jen? You know, why am I here again or talking to clients? I don't understand. And it's because we need to delve into the mind. We need to specifically ask our mind questions, Nick, and it will actually come up with the answer.
Because I mean, there's different bodies, isn't there? You know, we've got, you know, our emotional body, as it were. You got your mental state, you got your physical state, and spiritual state, whether people believe that or not. And you can, I'm sure our viewers have felt people's auras or energy. You've walked into a room, you like that person, you don't like that person. That's your subconscious literally working out the other person from their energy. Because we can talk and hopefully, you know, we are honest people. You can lie through speech, by the way, but you can't lie through your energy.
but you can't. But then the other input, and it's not to. I don't want to confuse the viewers watching.
Yeah. Okay.
But the energy is only as good as your state.
Yeah. Good
it's
point.
only as good
Obviously,
as the subconscious programming.
Yeah.
So if you've done a hell of a lot of work on yourself, then you can judge that state coming from a place. And you know, I harbour on about this, and I know I'm probably boring, but from a standpoint of coming from love.
Yes,
because if you're not if you're coming from that fear, someone's going to take something from me. I don't like this energy, because it could be as fickle as, and this is what we've got to realise, that in 1972, Johnny, this guy in the gym, looks just like Johnny, and really that's what you feel like the energy is, but it's not. It's this programming of what it reminds you of from that story.
So you've got Jen, you've got a good point here, because you know, sense of smell is the quickest way to trigger long-term memories. And, you know, it's all linked to your primitive brain, which we've discussed many times about survival. And it only wants Jen or Dominic to survive, the primitive brain. And that then can colour your view. Your filter is what Jen's saying. We filter our situation through the past. And that is not necessarily true for the present.
No, that's right.
That's just protecting us, isn't it?
Protecting. So if someone reminds you of Johnny, that's bringing up the ego, alarm bells. You're gonna, you know, in essence, what the ego does, you're gonna die here. You're gonna die. Avoid Johnny. So,
I mean, I'll sort of allude to and tell a quick story if I can. I've got a friend. I won't say his name. And we'd had a couple of drinks, nothing major, anything like that. He said, I'm going to show you this new Dracula programme on BBC. So I went back and I watched it, and there was this coiffed, dark-haired Dracula, good-looking guy and whatever. Anyway, on the night,
sounds amazing.
On the night, I had a nightmare. I had a nightmare because that guy looked very much like an alcoholic abusive that was within our family in Liverpool many years ago. So that's a prime example of something triggering.
Sorry to trivialise this. I think in opposition to me, I would have had a dream, and it would have been another sort of dream.
You've got it. Right? But it just goes to show that
I know where you're coming from with it.
Things get triggered, good or bad.
Through. And I wasn't trivialising what you were saying. I was trying to light-hearted.
But this is the thing, you see. So that shows that, you know, I don't think we are always fully healed. You know, this is just my opinion. I don't think that's possible to be 100%. Nobody's perfect. So, you know, perfection would mean you're 100% healed.
And you know, I've said previously that that's not going to happen until we're not in this life anymore. And then certain things are revealed and we understand so much more. But while we're humans, having a human existence, I mean, Nick, you know, without going into detail, but I'm very authentic and honest and real. You know, as much as all the work that I've done on myself, and I really have delved within, I've had a bit of, and we've talked about it, I've had a stonker of a week, which I'm not going to go into detail about. So it doesn't stop our experiences from coming in. It's what we fall back on, you know, that matters. It's almost like we feel like we're letting ourselves down when things come in that we don't particularly want. It's like it says something about us, especially with the manifesting. It says something about you as a person, but it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to define you.
It doesn't have to define you. It's asking you, it's triggering you to fall back to love. And as triggered as I have been, I know fundamentally I have to keep this vision of love, because love is the only thing that's going to free Jen.
And I think, what you're saying is massively valid to today and all the time. That you're coming back to love. That's the point, almost 0 point energy when you're born. We won't go into prenatal stuff here, but we're talking about, you know, you're born, you're innocent. You haven't had these experiences of this life all colouring our view. So it is about love, isn't it? It's the mother's love, it's the caregiver's love. Hopefully, if we're fortunate, it's our families that bring us up and show us love. But on that note that Jen's saying, if you're not shown love that I wasn't necessarily shown in some circumstances as a youth, then your esteem, like mine was, becomes very, very low.
and it does,
you know,
and what that, and but the thing is, what is being required of you fundamentally as a human, Nick, is to come back to thyself.
Good
because
point.
because coming back to self always teaches you the love that you were never taught from anybody else. It's you being your own teacher, and you leading by your own example of what love actually is. You know, and this is why, you know, for me, this is why I understand, you know, what's the definition of a romantic love? Well, again, we've said it comes from your own individual wounds. If you feel like being abused, physically abused, is the norm, and it's a real reflection of you don't know the love from within, because any time that you get to recognize that that's the biggest thing for you to learn, you would never in a million years put up with that.
No, of course. And it's about normalizing things. You know, you've got social norms, you've got deviant behavior, which we won't go into about communities at the moment. You know, deviant behaviors become the social norm, and etc. And that can happen in relationships as well. You know, I know of people that have been in sort of short-term relationships, and because the values didn't align, you know, this heartfelt value of feeling loved, or they didn't feel loved, so they put the responsibility on
to somebody else.
Yeah,
and what I think is important to understand about self-love is when we're choosing a partner. So I look at it like this, Nick. So we'll use me and you. From my perspective, I could be 70% there of really loving myself, and then I'm sort of picking somebody who's not. But the reason why, it's because I'm missing that link within me. If you don't, what I mean by that is, this was a component to me, so I really understand this, because this is what my personal definition of love is to me, and now I give it to myself. But I wasn't talking to myself sweetly. I wasn't soft with myself. I was harsh with myself. I wanted and I craved that sweet softness of somebody saying that to me. I perceived that it was all to do with that person, and it was because I wasn't giving it to myself.
And people can feed off you, you know, men and women will feed off your aura or your state of mind and treat you a certain way. So I'll state that at the end of the day, perception is projection. We've mentioned this before. How you feel about yourself is unfortunately or fortunately how you're going to be treated, you know. And it's the mirror. It's the mirror. It's self-reflection, isn't it? And as Jen's saying, and this could be a podcast for another time, because it's a really deep subject and quite complex in a way. We're talking about self-talk, and we've said this before about, I'd say 99% of people, the self-talk is negative, okay? And this is a program that's going on, and this is all about self-respect. So if you don't respect yourself, that will project to other people, you know. To give you a silly example, you know, if an old lady's sort of a bit ill walking to the cash point, some of the robbers out there will be looking at her thinking, oh, easy pickings. That's true. It's the same as a relationship. If a woman or a man is very people pleasing,
well, it's your agenda. And it's your agenda of where you're coming from your own state. So if your state is to, because you've been taken from the whole of your life, that then the only thing to top what you believe is the only way to top back up your cup is to take from others. This is where the issue lies. But to really understand what you need as a person, and what we all need is the love and self-validation. You know? And we've talked about it this week, particularly because of me going through a few things that I'm sifting through, which is natural as a human. You know, for example, you have been my mirror image, haven't you? You've mirrored back to me the kindness and sweetness that is a reflection of us, because we've come into each other's lives for a reason, haven't we? Just like anybody else who's come into your life.
And
and then the other side of it, the reason why I'm going through some of the issues is because the other side of my life at the moment, Nick, is mirroring back to me where I still need to do my work.
And that's a good point. I presume we're going to have to wrap up in a bit, because we could go on for a while. But on this note, it's a really valid point that people, and whether the viewers believe this, we could prove it a million times over, I'm sure. People and places, reasons, accidents, illnesses, experiences come into your life to wake you up and teach you a lesson.
That's right.
To move you away from the pain that you've been experiencing.
That's right.
Because you're going to carry that pain into another relationship. We've said this before, if I can say it again. If you're carrying bricks from a past relationship, you're going to build the same house.
It's the definition of madness, really, Nick.
Oh, definitely insanity. So we're talking about also, we mentioned about some people can be submissive, but you can come from hate as well. So we can go into a relationship bullying another person because we've been bullied.
These are all the emotions. We could go through all the array of emotions, and you are reflecting back what you're not giving to yourself from within. So as soon as an individual starts to recognise, right, look, that happened and this was my response, that's where I need to go back into. And
sorry to chip in, Jen, I think this is a really valid point, guys, if pardon the generic term. It's about accountability, responsibility. When I'm pointing the finger at that person in the relationship, saying he's or she's no good or whatever. Hang on a minute, we've got to take some accountability, because we're enabling that person to carry on that way. You've got to think about, why do certain people get treated a certain way and allow that to carry on.
Well, I think another big one is to talk about this next time, not now, but to leave it here in essence, because it's so much easier to walk with the victim mentality than to own that. And that's a massive one, I think, at the moment in communities, and drilling down to individual relationships. It is definitely about responsibility at the end of the day. Fine, you're not necessarily responsible up to the age of 21. The old key of the door, if the viewers remember that age. But after 21, surely we've got to get our own shit together. Pardon me swearing. But the other take home, and we will wrap it up, because we could go on.
Yes.
But the take home is, what's the benefit of doing that, Nick?
What's the benefit
of taking responsibility?
Okay, so
there is a point of why we're actually saying
that. So the benefit of taking responsibility is that you're going to improve yourself. If you're not going to be responsible, it's like being in a football team or a rugby team.
You're giving your power away to everybody
you're
else.
giving your power away to everybody else.
You have that power, and I'll keep none for myself. So you're going through your life with never being able to take responsibility and never take onus for your life.
And if you look at the teams of the world, if we can maybe finalise with this, last night Ireland played New Zealand All Blacks rugby team. Okay, and New Zealand won, and they hadn't beaten Ireland for 3.5 years. And you've got to ask yourself, why did New Zealand win? Well, at the end of the day, they play as a team collectively, but as individuals, they've got to listen to the coach and listen to each other. Nobody's bigger than the team. So in a relationship, if the woman is telling you you're not doing that right or whatever, rather than throwing your toys out the pram, listen to the person, because if they're coming from honesty and authenticity, then your relationship will grow. It is about being honest, and I think that
no
links.
One's perfect. No. The thing is, great place to leave it, and then we should. We keep saying this, but that's a great point, because with a real loving, lasting relationship, that person will see your faults and your wounds, and will always just want to build you up in spite of them.
Definitely.
And that's the truth. Because if you're coming from a place where you're trying to really heal and take stock of your feelings in your life, that will be reflected in the other person that you chose to be with. And if they don't see that, and they're not building you up in the process, because that's the essence of a relationship. Nick.
Support, isn't it?
Support, and being the team player, and being soft and gentle. We could go into energies, but being soft and gentle and understanding, and above all, loving. Right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So
cheers,
we'll
Jen.
leave it there.
I think
cheers,
so,
Nick.
All right.
Thanks for being my anchor today. We did proper team effort today.
Cheers, guys.
Right, that was lovely, and we're going to now do our TikTok live. I'll probably get him another coffee because you probably need it, ain't it? And we will see you in the next one.
Cheers.
Hey,